Alright, are you ready for me to explain a war awfully with a terrible mic? I don't know why it's so bad, but it is. Alright, it's time for the War of 1812, which just started because it's 1812 and it's June. No one knows why it started, but it did. So I'm going to tell you some reasons why, and then some other stuff, and then some facts, and then some other stuff, and then some other facts, and then more. It's a lot. A lot happened in this war. Except it wasn't necessarily a war, it was more like a conflict that was poorly resolved. I don't know. Alright, here's some random question and answer things. Alright, so first you gotta start with, where did the America have the best advantage? It was the ocean. What was the main weapon used? Guns. What caused it to be a draw? America was just like, hey, we decided to be good at fighting now. And why am I having to cram this project into 3 hours? Because I lost all my notes and I lost the thing that I was going to say, and I realized that all the studying that I did was going to have to go to waste because it would take an hour to explain it, and I had to condense that into 10 minutes, so now I'm having to cram this entire project into 3 hours. Here are some of the main causes of the war, and one huge one that was like a big starting factor to it was Britain's extreme laws on the US's trade with other European countries. This was because the Napoleonic War was going on, and that meant that the British didn't really want other people helping Napoleon do his things, so they were like, no, you can only trade with us unless taxed or permitted. Another cause of the war was America's want to spread westward and to gain some land there for slaves and crops and farms and slaves and crops. But one thing that was in the way was Native Americans. And guess who was influencing the Native Americans to kill the Americans? That was the Great Britain, who spawned the Americans that made the Native Americans kill the Americans. So basically, the Americans were mad at Great Britain for influencing the Native Americans to try to kill some more Americans, and the main person that Great Britain was trying to convince to kill more Americans was their prophet called Tenskwatawa. I don't know, I'll put it on the screen. But yeah, alright, only two more reasons why it started. I know that last one was a lot, I didn't mean to make that last for like 56 seconds, but another thing is that America wanted Canada. And spoiler, that did not go very well. They said, hey, do you want to leave your dreaded country that sells bagged milk? And they said, no, we're fine. And then slapped America with like a hockey stick or something, and left it at that, and Quebec will be important later. Another random cause was like America's weird superstition and like conspiracy theories, because they had a lot of those during that time, and they were thinking that the Great Britain were like killing their sheeps and ruining their trade and doing stuff like that on purpose to kill America and turn them against each other, which they actually were. And so that was another cause of the war. Now I'm gonna get on to like the contents of the war and what happened in it and stuff like that. Okay, this was the first time America has declared war, and so they didn't really know what they were doing, but they did know what they were doing because it seemed to have ended out okay, so I'm gonna assume that they knew what they were doing. And the first attack was on Canada, which was an effort to gain land and to cut off British supplies from the Tukashmeshian, I don't know how I wrote that, Indian Confederation. The first few battles were very hard on America because they were inexperienced and they had too much confidence. Also, they weren't really getting too much of the support that they needed. So basically, it was like a person who just started playing chess going against like a moderate to pro player. That's the only way I know how to refer to it. But as the war went on, they eventually got their stuff together and figured out how to end it in technically a draw, technically not a draw, but I'll get to that later. It all really began June 22nd when a mob in Baltimore, which is just a city in Maryland, destroyed a printing office of an anti-war newspaper. This was because the Anti-Federalists wanted the war and the Federalists didn't want the war, and they were tired of the Federalists not wanting the war, so they decided to do something about it. So obviously the war started with America against America, like it always does with the Civil War and some other stuff. But in July 12, General William Hull decides to invade Canada from Detroit, which was really the first attack of the war, and it didn't really end very well because America was very not prepared and was very unexperienced, and that's when they had their first defeat. The next few important parts all happened in August, starting on August 5th, where a skirmish near Browntown, Michigan took place. I was just listening to it back, and I just realized how horribly I pronounced the city name. It's Brownstown, not Browntown. So, yeah, I don't know why I did that. It was where 24 natives attacked 200 Americans, and somehow we just kind of like scurried away and tried to defend ourselves, but we did not do well in that, and we also had quite a fatal return. On August 8th, we returned to Detroit, and about like 7 days later, literally a week later, British bombarded Detroit, and yet again, we surrender literally a day later. So now British has Detroit, and on August 19th, the USS Constitution went against the HMS Gregory. I don't know how to pronounce that. But it was basically an overseas battle, which was crazy because the US won when they were outnumbered, and it gave like a huge ego boost and moral boost, which kind of led them through the war to give them more confidence, and you'll realize that later. Oh, you thought America would be on a winning streak from them? No! On October 13th, literally less than a month later, British Canadians win the Battle of Queenston Heights in Ontario. But in November 27th, so yes, a month later, a skirmish happens in Fort Erie. And guess what happens? America wins! Yay, they defeat the British at that fort, and they won. So basically all throughout 1813 and 1814, it was just a bunch of back and forth battles, and it wasn't really going anywhere until the end of 1814, but I'll get to that in a bit. Here's some important things that happened throughout those 2 years. Have fun with that for the next like 10 seconds. Yay, it's now December 24th, Christmas Eve, 1814, and the Treaty of Ghent was just signed by British and America in Ghent, Belgium, which ended the War of 1812, and some treaty stuff happened, and all conquered territories returned, and they planned to settle the boundary of the United States and Canada, and all good was happening. But no war can end on a good term, so the USS Constitution engages with the HMS Cayenne thing, whatever, and HMS Levant, not knowing that the war was over, and now a bunch of people died, and a bunch of people were wounded, and now there are massacres, and now there are prisons in Devon and England, and now May 24th, 1815, Battle of the Sinkhole. Everything is going to waste here. We made all this progress just to end it on the Battle of the Sinkhole. But it's okay, because the US got their respect back. They can now do stuff with the ocean. They can now trade. They can now expand westward. Everything is going good. We're fine. And now we are where we are today. And I'm hoping that, like, present me that is in the classroom has something prepared to say, because I did not do this very well. I had to cram this into 3 hours because I lost all the notes, I lost everything that I wanted to say, and yet again, I'm saying this all again. I don't know why I'm repeating myself. I'm just super duper anxious. I don't know what I'm doing.